Hello, comrades, and welcome back to the Ushanka Show. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи. First of all, I would like to thank you for your support of my project, for your nice comments, and your likes. It's greatly appreciated. Today's topic is Life of the Ordinary Soviet Family. I decided if I look back at my life, at life of my parents in the Soviet Union, and trace my steps through the birth in Kiev in 1971, kindergarten, school, university, my parents' work, maybe that insider view will give you better understanding of life in the USSR in 70s and 80s. So everyone say hello to little chubby Serежа, who was born in July 1971 in Kiev, the capital of Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. My mother Elena was 23 years old when I was born, and my father Nikolai was 25. My mother was born in 1948 in northern Ukraine, not far away from the border with Russia and Belarus, and my father was born in 1946 in the western part of Ukraine, Zhytomyr region. They met in Kiev in 1969 at some dance party, and they married in 1970. I was born a year later in July 1971. If you're interested in Soviet Union, you should know by now that medical service was free service in Soviet Union, so my parents didn't have to pay anything for my birth. But, of course, everything was done pretty cheap and effective, so my mom didn't have her own room. Actually, in the same room, there were about 10 other ladies, young girls, older women, also giving birth. Another big difference between American way of having a baby and Soviet way, fathers weren't allowed to be in hospital. Actually, we had a special separate building called Roddom, Родильный дом, which is called, like, you can translate it as a birth house, and it was dedicated only to mothers giving birth. There was nothing else going on there but just doctors helping women to give birth to their children. So as I mentioned, my mom stayed in the same room as other 10 or 15 women, and they didn't keep the babies with them. Babies were somewhere in a separate room, and doctors and nurses were bringing them regularly to their mothers to be fed. So they had these little carts they were pushing in the corridors with the babies lined up, and I guess they had some kind of badge, so they knew which room this cart is going and whose baby is there. So my dad couldn't be next to his wife when she was giving birth, and that was a huge shock for me when I was told that I need to be right next to my wife when she was giving birth to our first child here in Michigan. So that was quite a shock. I really didn't think it was a good idea, but after talking to my wife, I realized I had no choice. Of course, I don't remember anything about my stay in that hospital, but my mother told me several interesting stories, which I would like to share with you. And actually, events in that place affected me and my life for extended period of time. I was quite a big, healthy baby. I was first baby that my mom had, and when I was born, I refused to cry, and even spanking didn't help. And my mother said the doctor ended up splashing some cold water at me, and then I started crying and I couldn't stop. Since I was the first baby, my mom had an issue with milk. She just didn't have any milk, so I was a very hungry, angry baby, biting her nipples and screaming. And guess what happened? right next to my mother was a young girl who gave her birth to a very small, tiny baby girl, and that baby didn't want to eat a lot, so this lady was suffering because her breasts were full of milk. And here I am next to her, all starving and angry and crying and biting my mom. So my mother, bless her heart, asked for help, and that's how I got Milk Mother. So from being a tiny baby, I already was kissing other ladies' breasts and make her feel better. And I think it's one of the reasons why till this day, anytime when I see a pretty woman with nice large breasts, it's my knees kind of like my legs getting weak and my knees buckle under me, and that's probably came from that experience back in Soviet Union when I was a tiny baby. Now I need to mention that in Soviet Union women had quite generous maternity leave conditions. What I mean is that by law, pregnant woman had 56 days of paid vacation before giving the birth, so it's almost 2 months, and then 56 days after giving the birth, also paid vacation. A total of 4 months was paid vacation to take care of your baby, your maternity leave. And if you had twins or you had some complications during your birth, then that maternity leave could be extended up to 70 days, 70, after giving the birth. Also, if the woman would like to stay and take care of its baby for a longer period of time, they were allowed to extend their maternity leave, but without pay, for up to 1 year, and their place of work was supposed to hold her position for her for that period of time. So that's quite generous terms for maternity leave in Soviet Union, but you need to keep in mind that all companies were state-owned, so there was no private business owner who would be suffering consequences of high cost of maternity leave. So this concludes my first story about growing up in Soviet Union. I hope you enjoyed the story, and again, thank you very much for your support. And also I would like to thank whoever was so generous and contributed $30 to my channel. It was a very nice surprise. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your support. До свидания. Goodbye.